Welcome to the deep dive. You send us your sources, we dig through them, and, well, we try to pull out the most interesting stuff for you.
That's the plan.
Today, we're jumping into David Rakoff's collection, Don't Get Too Comfortable. It's quite a mix.
Oh, absolutely. Rakoff had this amazing way of looking at things.
Mm.
Really sharp, funny, sometimes quite moving.
Exactly. So think of this as your shortcut to getting Rakoff's unique take on the world.
A very distinct worldview, definitely.
Our mission, then, is to explore some of those aha moments.
Oh, yeah.
He covers so much ground becoming an American citizen, which is surprisingly complex. His takes on high-end food culture, which are hilarious.
Oh, yeah.
Fashion shows, even things like cryonics. It's eclectic.
It really is. What's great is how he connects the personal to the bigger picture. He'll tell you about some specific, maybe odd experience he had.
Right.
And suddenly you're seeing a whole societal trend or, a human quirk in a new light.
Mm-hmm.
He does it brilliantly.
Okay, let's dive in. First up, becoming an American. Now, Rakoff was Canadian, and this whole process takes up a fair bit of the book. It's not your typical patriotic journey.
No, not at all. What's striking right off the bat is his feeling of, it's almost like defeat. He actually uses that word.
Defeat, even though Canada and the U.S. are generally friendly.
Yeah. It suggests something about maybe losing a piece of his identity or just the feeling of assimilation being a bit heavy.
Right, and the actual application process sounds like a nightmare. He gets completely stuck on this one question.
Oh, the 18 to 26 question.
Yes, just pages of trying to figure out this incredibly tangled legal language, double negatives, clauses.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Here's this incredibly smart writer, a master of language, totally baffled by a government form. Imagine how tough that must be for people without that background. It's a hidden hurdle.
And the answer, after all that agony?
Just no. Kind of anticlimactic.
Right. So then he has to document every single trip he's taken. For years back.
He creates this insanely detailed table. He calls it virtually scented.
I love that. You can just picture him with old passports and diaries.
That meticulousness is so Rakoff, though. Like he's trying to build an unbreachable defense against bureaucracy through sheer detail.
So he finally gets to the interview at the Bureau of Citizenship and Immigration Services. Sounds pretty impersonal.
Totally. Standard government building experience, waiting room, security.
And he sees this awkward moment with a lawyer making a really bad joke.
Oh, the Saddam Hussein joke. Cringeworthy.
Yeah. And Rakoff just notes how the applicant knew, even with the language barrier, that his lawyer was a shithead. Such a perfect small observation.
So what about his actual interview?
Well, apparently the interviewer is surprised by how neat his paperwork is.
Really?
Yeah, seems it contrasted sharply with how nervous and rambling he sounded when he was actually talking.
Oh, makes sense.
So he gets provisional approval. But then, leaving the building, green card in hand, he feels this real sense of bleakness.
Bleakness,
Yeah.
not relief.
No, he describes it as feeling more unrooted than mere statelessness. It's surprisingly sad, actually, after all that effort.
Wow, that really speaks to the complexity of it all, doesn't it? It's not just gaining something, maybe it's losing something too. Being sort of in between.
And the swearing-in ceremony, also pretty weird.
How so?
Well, they play America the Beautiful in a minor key, which sounds odd. Almost mournful.
A minor key. Huh.
And he quietly skips under God during the pledge, like this little personal reservation.
Mm-hmm. A small act of defiance, almost.
Then the national anthem hits him, and he feels this wave of guilt and loneliness. He even catches himself inventing these hardship stories for the other immigrants there, admits he's not proud of it.
That's very honest.
Ugh.
Very Rakoff.
He says the main reasons he wanted citizenship were about feeling connected to New York, his home,
Right.
and also the responsibility of voting. He calls it a great responsibility.
Okay, that makes sense. Civic duty.
But then, at the ceremony itself, he asks about voter registration forms. Nothing, just some vague excuse about a church group running out. Kind of deflating.
Yeah, that gap between the ideal and the reality. It's telling. A little foreshadowing, maybe.
Totally, because his first actual glimpse of America as a citizen, driving through Hempstead?
Glamorous, I assume?
Not exactly. Cracked sidewalks, liquor stores, just very mundane. The total opposite of some grand, triumphant moment.
Shatters the illusion a bit.
And then, fast forward, he finally votes in the 2004 election. The result leaves him with this profound sense of buyer's remorse.
Really?
Yeah, he starts thinking wistfully about Canada, its social safety net. It shows how deep that original identity still ran.
Wow. Okay. Quite a journey.
Right. Now, let's switch gears a bit. Another thing Rakoff nails is culture and consumption, particularly food.
Oh, yes. The food essays are fantastic.
He tells this great story about a waiter in some fancy restaurant. The waiter promises this lovely story about the calzone,
Okay, I'm listening.
builds it all up, and the story is just completely ordinary, nothing special about the calzone at all.
Huh. Perfect. That sets up his whole critique, doesn't it?
Exactly. He just skewers the way we fetishize food, like that New York Times piece he mentions, going on and on about fleur de sel, fancy sea salt.
The nuances of salt. And what about the Scottish River ice cubes flown in overnight?
Yes, that too. It's absurd. His point is kind of like when you start analyzing salt and water like you're choosing a brain surgeon, maybe things have gone a bit far.
We veered into self-parody, yeah. That relentless hunt for the tiniest edge in quality, or perceived quality.
And he links it to creating this army of multiply chemically sensitive, high-maintenance princesses, always navigating these tiny invented discomfort.
Right, and then there's nostalgie de la boue, that idea of romanticizing poverty.
But only, he says, if you have another room to hide your shit.
Crucial prerequisite. You need comfort to appreciate the idea of discomfort.
Sylvia's approach to donations makes that point perfect.
But right, the recovery program.
Yeah.
She rejects the expensive stuff if it looks too plain, too poor.
Because it might be depressing for the people receiving it. It's such a smart observation, an inversion of the usual thinking.
And he points to places like Le Pain Quotidien or Republic Noodles.
Yeah, the commodified faux poverty. Rustic chic, but definitely not cheap.
And the wallpaper. The Rogarszewski scroll wallpaper.
A copy of old tenement wallpaper costing a fortune per roll.
It's selling history, selling hardship, but only to people completely removed from it. It's bizarre.
And that line. Don't you know that if you curl your lip enough, you can make poor sound just like pure?
Oof, brutal and brilliant. Gets right to the heart of the pretension.
Okay, so moving on from food, Rakoff put himself in some pretty unconventional situations and then always came back with commentary.
Definitely, like observing that Playboy photo shoot in Belize.
Which sounds like it should be scandalous or something, but he mostly found it kind of boring.
Yeah, his take was that those kinds of images are just everywhere, so ubiquitous, the actual creation of them was almost mundane.
He felt like he was at a double remove anyway and just wasn't shocked or titillated.
Makes sense.
He also took a side trip to San Pedro, which had been hit hard by a hurricane.
Right, a real contrast to the luxury resort.
Totally. And he has this funny internal monologue at the fancy place, Cayo Espanto, pretending to be shocked by the luxury.
His section bravada of feigned horror.
While secretly loving the pampering.
Oh.
That self-aware hypocrisy is classic Rakoff.
It really is.
Okay.
And what about wild man Steve Brill, the foraging guy?
Oh, fantastic. Brill sounds like a character, part expert botanist, part...
Borscht Bill comedian.
Exactly. Rakoff captures his stickiness perfectly, like yelling, "Stop biting me!" at a leaf.
Or warning Catholics about spilling garlic mustard seeds. Wonderfully random.
Rakoff gets initially swept up in the romance of foraging.
But then reality hits.
Yeah, the skepticism creeps in. He notes the distinct lack of tofu trees.
Ah, a good dose of pragmatism there. Deflates the whole back-to-nature fantasy a bit.
Then there's the Concorde flight. You'd expect pure glamour.
But the main takeaway was...
everyone taking photos of the altitude display. This weirdly communal, almost nerdy moment of excitement about the technology.
That's actually quite sweet in a way.
Yeah.
Shared wonder.
And then the immediate contrast with his next flight. Hooters Air.
Oh boy. Talk about whiplash.
Yeah, he describes this very subdued atmosphere, everyone in tracksuits, the hype versus the reality. It's just perfectly observed.
He really had an eye for those contrasts.
He also dives into the Midnight Madness puzzle game, even though he fully admits he's terrible at puzzles.
Like actively bad at them.
Right. But he still appreciates the whole scene, the effort involved, this uniquely New York thing that doesn't cost a fortune.
It's that openness to experience, isn't it? Even if he knows he'll be bad at it.
And he connects it to Times Square after 9/11, the changed vibe, and tells that amazing little story about the woman guarding her cell phone minutes.
Oh, I remember that. So strange and poignant. Her priority wasn't emergency calls, but protecting her paid minutes. Says so much about that specific moment in time.
It really does. And then, puppetry at the penis.
Yes, he was. Less than enthusiastic, shall we say.
Understatement. He tries to figure out why people liked it, especially post 9/11. Was it escapism? but he just couldn't get into it. His bemusement is hilarious.
Some things just don't click, I guess.
He also really, really didn't like Miami Beach.
Seemed to offend his sensibilities on multiple levels.
Pretty much, but then he takes a job there as a pool ambassador.
Which sounds like prime people-watching territory for him.
Totally. And his cynical coworker, Sammy, pure gold.
Sammy sounds amazing.
Yeah.
World-weary wisdom.
And Rakoff realizes his own hopes of finding scandal there fall flat because everyone's just sort of normal and well-behaved. It deflates his own narrative.
That's great. The self-awareness again.
Then there's his visit to the Today Show Plaza, peeking behind the curtain.
The manufactured excitement.
Exactly. The fake trees, the generic tease sign on the monitor. He sees right through the constructed reality of it all.
Gently mocking the performance.
But then, a complete shift. His visit to the Martha Stewart Living Craft Department.
Oh, this part is wonderful.
He is just beside himself with joy. The sheer volume of supplies. Jars of shells, bags of crystals, endless ribbons.
You can feel his genuine delight. It's infectious.
And he catalogs his own massive craft stash, 18 cubic feet. Talks about polyurethane like it's a sacred object.
A miracle product. It reveals this whole other side, this passion for making things by hand.
And he links it back to handmade gifts he's given, the emotional weight they carry, even his childhood mix-up of autistic and artistic. It's really touching.
A lovely personal moment amidst all the satire.
Then off to Paris for the couture fashion shows.
Right, plunging into a world he admits he knows almost nothing about.
Which makes his observations great. He's relying on his febrile, movie-fueled imagination of how high fashion works.
And he can't get anyone to tell him how much anything costs, right?
Not once, the entire week. Hilarious. And the tip about his fancy hotel where you have to ask for everything 3 times.
A perfect detail.
Captures a certain vibe, definitely. He gives these great little snapshots of the shows. Galliano's theatricality, Gaultier's innovation, McQueen's edginess.
But it wasn't all glamour. He nearly fainted at one show.
Yeah, Yves Saint Laurent. No air conditioning, apparently. Sounds pretty grim.
And the Victor and Rolf show.
Oh.
The conceptual one.
Ending with the model weighed down by bells, the slave of fashion. Such a striking, powerful image. Really makes you think about the industry.
Absolutely. Okay, another sharp turn. The log cabin Republicans.
Right. He talks to Mark Mead, Patrick Guerriero, trying to understand their position. Gay Republicans.
It's inherently complex, isn't it? That tension between identity and party affiliation.
They talk a lot about the big tent, trying to carve out a space. It's a fascinating look at navigating those intersections.
And then he talks to Robert Knight.
Yeah, presenting the complete opposite view. Very conservative, very critical of LGBTQ+ rights.
The contrast must have been stark.
Extremely. Knight calls the gay rights movement the greatest threat to American freedom. Rakoff just sort of dryly notes Knight's description of the log cabin agenda to promote homosexuality. The gap is huge.
And Guerriero's comment.
Yeah.
Something about how nobody joins log cabin because they think it'll be easy.
Exactly. It underlines the struggle, the internal and external conflicts they face.
Really complex territory.
Then there are his more personal explorations. Body image, talking to plastic surgeons.
Which is funny and also quite vulnerable, the way he details his perceived flaws.
Very striking. And the 20-day fast he undertook.
Oh yeah, the detox. How did that go?
Pretty much as you'd expect. Lots of hunger, not much magical transformation.
No profound enlightenment?
Not really. And his interactions with the fasting center's founder sound tense. Rakoff's skepticism versus the founder's absolute certainty. A real clash.
Been there, done that with fad diets. Well, maybe not the 20-day fast part.
Huh. And finally, the really far-out stuff. Transhumanism. Cryonics.
Visiting Alcor, the life extension place. Wow.
Yeah. Diving into these really utopian, sometimes wild ideas about the future. The singularity, freezing yourself.
It raises huge questions, doesn't it? The practicalities, the philosophy.
Totally. Like, what would it actually be like to wake up centuries later? The potential isolation.
And the idea of Switzerland becoming this frozen vault for the future rich? Darkly funny.
So... Yeah, coming back up for air after all that, don't get too comfortable. Rakoff's range is just incredible.
He really is. That ability to find humor, insight, significance in just about anything.
He blends the personal story with the big cultural observations so well. It gives you this unique way of looking at things.
A very particular lens on modern life, from the totally mundane to the completely bizarre.
His essays definitely make you look again, maybe laugh a bit more, think a bit more critically about the world around you.
Which kind of leads to a final thought maybe for you listening. Which of Rakoff's observations really stuck with you? Did any of them resonate particularly strongly?
Yeah, and maybe. How does his perspective make you think differently about your own experiences? Could you apply that Rakoffian lens to your own life?
It's an interesting exercise.
Yeah.
If you want more of that wit, that sharp insight, those surprising connections, definitely check out the book.
Absolutely. Don't get too comfortable. You won't regret diving in.